Welcome to In Such a Time, conversations on Jewish life, leadership, and meaning. Each week, Rabbis Jonathan Jaffe and Lior Landi explore the moments, questions, and ideas that shape who we are and who we aspire to be. And now, for this week's conversation.
Welcome to the In Such a Time podcast. I'm Rabbi Jaffe, and today we have a very special guest with us, Rabbi Benny Minich, all the way here from Israel,
Hi.
who, despite the situation, what's going on in Israel, has been able to make it here. You flew out through Egypt, correct?
Yes, Egypt and Turkey.
You're a very brave man.
Feeling myself an integral part of the Middle East.
So first, we should bear noting here that a couple of things. One is that we had intended Rabbi Landi to be part of this podcast as well, and that she's your former Chavruta partner, your study partner. She is not feeling well. So we wish her all the best. And second, that we're recording this podcast the day after the news of the attempted terrorist attack at Temple Israel. In the Detroit suburbs. It's a congregation that members of our clergy here have close connections. I'm friends with multiple members of their clergy, and just thanking God that people are at least physically all okay, but also being very aware with trepidation of what it's like being a Jew in a pew these days. And so thank you for being with us so much. First of all, before we get into your story, tell our listeners a little bit, how did you get here? Because leaving Israel and puddle jumping from one Middle Eastern country to another, that's not an easy thing to do. How'd you do this?
It's not an obvious thing to do because usually we feel ourselves in Israel like living in an island, and living only by flights. I remember my kids when we first went to Europe. Understanding that we cross two countries with the car. We don't have such things in Israel.
Right.
And but from another perspective, recently, like last 5 years, when we have different agreements with the Emirates and Bahrain and visiting even Qatar with last World Cup of soccer World Cup, it made me feel in some new way.
Yeah.
That we are part of a bigger region, and when our original flight plans got canceled, and I promised my son that it's going to be his first America visit, we decided to pursue it. I cannot say that my wife is totally okay with that, but we went through
so you
it.
Went from so you fly. Did you drive to the border?
We took a bus to Eilat, which is the most southern city.
Yes.
And we crossed by foot to Taba in Egypt, and then we take
in the Sinai.
And we took a taxi
from Taba to
Sharm el-Sheikh.
Got it.
And from there we flew to Istanbul.
Well.
Yes.
So from Sharm el-Sheikh you went to Istanbul.
And connection flight to New York.
Wow. And did with all of this on an Israeli passport?
Yes.
And did you get any looks along the way?
So we decided to do, for the first time, not to show that we are Jewish. So we took off our kippot and we went through speaking Russian because it's my first language and some 1.5 language of my kids. But when we crossed in Taba, there was a group of Hasidic Jews crossing. And my son told me, "Oh, Abba, they're definitely not hiding the Jews."
Yeah.
That was a bit fun.
Wow.
But yes, it was,
That's amazing. So for our listeners as well, Benny, you were our intern here through the Hanasi Fellowship, in which you came twice to our synagogue. That was around 6-7 years ago.
9 years ago.
Is that true? Oh my
Almost
goodness.
9 years, 8 years ago.
And that is as you were pursuing your smicha, your rabbinic ordination in Israel. You were also at the time. You were studying somewhat, I think you overlapped 2 years with Rabbi Landi in the Israeli rabbinic program. And not only are you now a full-fledged rabbi in Israel, and our December Israel trip was so happy to be able to be with you in Jaffa, but you're also head of the Reform movement of Israel, Maram.
Head of the Rabbinical Council.
The Rabbinical Council of it.
The Reform.
And you are here as you are making your way out to California for the Central Conference of American Rabbis conference, which you're going to be participating in as well.
Yes.
So amazing. So just for those of our congregants who haven't had a chance to get to know you as well, and you have such an interesting history, tell us a little bit about you, your background, your wife's background, where you guys came from,
Okay,
all of that, please.
let's make it short, as well as best as I can. I was born and raised in Crimea, Ukraine. Last years of Soviet Union. I was born in 87, and the Jewish community I grew up in since I was 9, 10 was a Reform Jewish community originally, because like the town I was born in is called Kerch. Today, everybody knows where it is because that's where Russia built the bridge after the occupation. But we were like literally the end of the world. We had no Chabad there. It's really funny hearing about, every place you have Coca-Cola, you have Chabad. We definitely had Coca-Cola. We didn't have any Chabad rabbi there, but we had a small reform community which raised 2 rabbis.
Wow.
We have a rabbi in Bratislava in Slovak Republic who's also from our congregation.
A friend of yours?
Brother-in-law.
Oh,
we
wow.
Married 2 sisters. Small region, not so many Jews there.
Okay.
And when after I made Aliyah to Israel,
how old were you then?
I was 15. It was 24 years ago. And after the army, when I was looking for who I'm gonna be when
you
grow up, I went for Jewish philosophy in the University of Haifa. And then I went to Hebraian College in Jerusalem.
Wow. And what did your family think about that?
It was, I prefer the Hasidic way of explaining that, like the Jewish spark of my soul made it to me. When I went to my first Kabbalat Shabbat service, I believe I was, as I said, 9 or 10. I just felt inside and belonging, and I stayed.
Wow.
And even that in Israel, Reform Judaism is the minority group. I didn't feel myself convenient in separated synagogues, in Orthodox synagogues, where men and women sit separately. And I found myself in the Reform community first in Haifa, and then we moved to Jerusalem.
Are there a lot of Israeli Reform rabbis with a former Soviet Union background, or is that fairly unique?
Today we have more. When I started my studies, we had 4, I believe, 4 or 5 Russian-speaking rabbis, and most of them left to Israel for different places. We have a rabbi in Warsaw who is HUC ordained rabbi. We had a rabbi in Krakow, also in Poland. We had a rabbi in Russia. One of the rabbis in Russia was ordained in Jerusalem. In Israel then, we had 2 rabbis working. And today, during my studies, we had a student from a conservative seminary who joined us, left the conservative seminary, and now we have 2 more. So now we have 6 Russian-speaking rabbis. And we have a very interesting study that showed that in Israeli society, the Russian-speaking Jews, Russian-speaking Israelis, some of them are patrilineal Jews, they feel very comfortable. Large amount, about 20%, say that they feel that themselves comfortable in Reform communities. So we have 3. Now we have 3 Russian-speaking communities in Israel, in Haifa, in Ramat Gan, and in Ashdod, all over the country. And we have significant Russian-speaking groups, like in my congregation in Jaffa, which is not Russian-speaking congregation, but it has a big group.
You attracted it.
Yes. But also, for example, in Beersheba, where the Rabbi Mira Chovav, she's an amazing, but Russian is not her strong talent. So, but she has a significant Russian-speaking group there.
I think one thing that some of our listeners might not know is the predominance of those coming from the former Soviet Union who've come there since the fall of the Soviet Union. Was it 1 million, 1.5 million or so?
1.4 today we have.
Right. And many of whom have come with very little Jewish background because of the fact that under the former Soviet Union they could not practice. Many of them are questioned with whether their Jewish lineage when it comes to their Jewish identity, especially by the Rabbanut. And many of them are coming from non-halachic, that's non-Jew, like Jewish law practicing background. And so there's a natural attraction towards the Reform community, which is less stringent. Is that fair to say? How does that work?
It's partially fair because it's correct. This is correct for Jews who made Aliyah in the 90s. And those who came after 2000, it depends. Some of them are very attracted to more conservative tradition, represented by Chabad rabbis, and some of them understand the difference of Chabad rabbis there in Ukraine and Russia and in Israel, because in Israel they're more conservative than they are there. On the other hand, there was a huge work done by the World Union for Progressive Judaism in the former Soviet Union. And in Ukraine, for example, even today, after 4 years of war, we have 8 functioning congregations, Reform congregations, which is amazing. There are no rabbis. There is one visiting rabbi in Kiev, but we have congregations in Lviv, in Western Ukraine, and even my native congregation is still define itself as Reform.
Really?
12 years after it was occupied by...
How far from the bridge?
Oh, I think 2 kilometers, something like that.
Wow.
The point is that they have sometimes a visiting rabbi from Moscow who is also one rabbi at the whole Russian Federation, and he needs to manage his time. But so many younger people, they attended either congregations or summer camps, or they've met the Reformed Jewish tradition. And even when in the small cities, the congregation ceased to exist, in bigger cities, the congregation stayed. So today, the congregations in Haifa and in Ramat Gan, they were founded by the activists who made Aliyah from Ukraine and Russia and Belarus. In Belarus, still the Reform community is very, very active and strong, and they feel themselves obligated to keep their children being raised in Reform Jewish background.
Yeah, interesting. So I want to ask you, you have such an interesting story, and not only that you've been to many different places, but the places that you've been are some of the focal points of conflict at the moment that we're very well aware of. So I want to ask you first, like, how's your family doing? How are you guys in Israel? How is your community in Israel doing? How is your family friends in Ukraine doing? Do you keep in touch with them as well? And what does it feel to be, as an individual, someone who has traversed these areas of incredible international focus and conflict at the moment? How are you?
I don't have so much connection with Ukraine now because all of my friends left, and I don't have family there.
And your wife, does she have family there?
No, her father left. He was the last, and he left Crimea 3 years ago.
Got it.
And so now I'm connected for a bit with non-Jewish friends, and I'm getting some news, and I'm very active in pro-Ukrainian Israeli community. I had the privilege to speak recently, 3 weeks ago, at an event in Habima Square, one of the central places in Tel Aviv, which was a sort of a demonstration and support event for the Ukrainians.
Wow.
And I was invited to read the prayer there. But I could speak about coming from Crimea, that for somebody, the war started 4 years ago. For us, it's 12 years event. But my time is less invested in the Ukrainian story. In Israel, it's really a big issue of trying to hold the communities together, especially that Israeli society is not built for understanding the importance of congregational frameworks. So for us, my specific congregation is very low technological. So for example, I know that they would like to have services getting back inside our prayer venue. And for that,
you mean during the war right now?
Yes,
because we were with you in the venue in December. But you mean now?
So for example, I know that now when I'm absent, so last week we had the services through Zoom together, all the Beit Daniel congregations, and now they're still like Beit Daniel. They have the permission to have a service for 50 people, and my congregation will join online.
So let's just make clear for people that during the war right now, that the government gives out security parameters, and sometimes it says that there can be no meetings at all right now because people have to be very close to a miklat or a mamad, next to a safe room, a public one or a private one. then they'll say, okay, if things seem to be getting better, you can congregate up to 50 people
Right.
total,
Right.
but no more than that, and you have to be near a miklat or mamad
Right.
again.
So
And so
this
you're at that level right
So
now.
this permission, it came too late, so I could not arrange someone to replace me. For next
Got
week,
it.
I have my emerita
Yes.
to replace me for a service, but now it's like that. But my congregation, like for example, after October 7th, on October 13th, which was Friday, we already gathered for a service
Really?
because it was crucial for them to
Wow.
be together. So we'll manage that out somehow when I'm back. For my family, it's really difficult since now we have the news that our return flight home was also canceled. So we'll need to
You're gonna
manage
figure
that
it out.
out. But you know, we
Maybe you
are.
can fly through Jordan or fly through, I don't know.
I want
It
to remind
happens.
you that this war brought us together with the states we're not really connected with.
Right?
Jordan has also flight restrictions, and the Emirates have flight restrictions. So it might be Egypt once again,
Yes.
but or I don't know, Cyprus and the yacht. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll find something out. But I think that for my family, it's very difficult because my wife is I think she's less Zionist than I am because I'm a crazy Zionist who left at 15 his
Yes.
native region and made Aliyah. She made Aliyah because she met me
Got it.
on one hand, but on the other hand, I think she's very Israeli now, 13 years after, and she's a doctor, so she's a careful and
She's yeah.
a caring
She's not just a
person.
doctor. I want to get that, but I want to just before we turn to it, again, tell us what it's like with your family right now. You're here with your son right now. Are your kids in school? Are schools closed? Are
No, the
people,
schools are
what's it like?
closed. The schools
Yes.
are closed. They
Hmm.
have online classes, and it seems like I don't think that this school year is gonna turn back somehow
Yeah.
because in 2 weeks there's a Passover
Hmm. For a break for
holidays,
that.
Passover break, and after Passover nobody's really studying in Israel. So it's unfortunately it's another year. My son started his first grade on the COVID
Oh my
year.
goodness. Yes. So
So
we've learned nothing.
it seems like his elementary school is full of extensions and
Yeah. Tell us about,
cancellations.
do you have a safe room in your house?
We have a safe space in our building.
You build it. So in the middle of the night, when the Tseva Adom, when the red
We
alert
go
goes up,
down.
you have to be in your pajamas and you
We
all have
go
to,
down in our pajamas. My daughter is on me. She's 4 year old.
uh-huh.
Usually she has the privilege of not waking up because
Indeed.
she's on me. And this is difficult, especially after we left. There were a few tough nights.
Hmm.
Uh, Somehow, fortunately, my sister-in-law got stuck
Hmm.
in Israel, so she's staying with them right now, and
She
she
can go
helped.
through Sinai and Turkey like you did.
So she thought about that, but since we asked her to stay
She's
for a
helping.
few more days, so she's helping, and psychologically, it's difficult.
Hmm.
It's difficult to
Yeah.
spend nights like that. On the other hand, there are different opportunities to to make some remote work and to, but again, it's difficult.
So tell us what it's like going down in the middle of the night with neighbors and such into the safe space, the mamad or the miklat. When we some of the videos that we see here in the U.S., we see videos. There was a wedding that happened in one of the properties that made the rounds. There was you see a Purim party going on. I saw that there was someone made an app in which you can by your data location you can know who else is single in
Yes.
the safe space, so you can know who to hit on or
There are
not.
lots of jokes. My favorite is that somebody made up the picture of the application that is
Uh-huh.
alarming about the bombs, but there's written like the bombs are coming. Don't call your ex.
Yeah, don't call
Yes,
your equivalent.
which
Yes,
is
the
very
single
nice. I
seat.
have some single congregants who like that so much. About that, there
Yeah.
was an app made. What's your probability to finish your shower
Yes.
in your area? Israelis try to make some fun about that. Our specific building, they're very friendly. It gets very social. The last Israeli-Iranian war was in June when my wife had the birthday, so they prepared a cake for her. This one was when my birthday was at the beginning of March.
Oh.
So I didn't have a cake. I didn't want to celebrate, but I also got my happy birthday songs. Everybody's trying to get also the safe corner, my safe corner of books.
Yeah.
For example, I finished few interesting stuff.
So did you keep books down there? You have a
No,
library
I'm bringing
space?
with me. I'm bringing with me.
It's all packed. Cause well, when the
So we have a
goes
bag.
up,
We have a
yes.
bag. Although we hope that our place is not going to be bombed because we're a bit far from some hot spots. But we have our documents and some stuff for first aid kit and the books.
And the books.
For me, sometimes it's one book at a time.
Yeah.
So I have recommendations.
And when the Tzevatum goes off, when you hear the alarm, how long do you have?
So now it's became more developed. So we have 10 minutes before.
They have the new system now where it tells you as a warning you might have to go.
You might have.
We
have about 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, be on alert.
And some people are going down then. In Kfar Saba, where we live, there are many times when you don't have an alarm after that because it goes to more southern part. But after we left, last few days, the Hezbollah from Lebanon joined the war. So now it's more than
more from the north.
It used to be,
and with less of a advance warning because it's so much closer.
Yes.
Right, absolutely. Yes. Okay, so you then it goes off and you make your way down there and you have to wake up the kids in the middle of the night and just head down there and that must be
they're well trained.
Yeah,
they're well trained. They have their shoes. They know what to do and how to go. Now when the internet in the shelter is
everything,
everybody is in the screens and
wow. And then is it hard to go back to bed after that?
It depends, not for me. For me. I always say that I served in infantry battalion. I can sleep wherever is possible.
Yeah.
In every, like, if I have 15 minutes, I will sleep for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what I have. My wife doesn't like that, but it's more difficult for her.
So tell us a little bit, shifting gears, about the Reform movement in Israel and what's being worked on right now. Again, so you are the head of the Rabbinic Council of Maram. Yes. That's correct. I don't want to overstate. It sounds like something of great importance still. But a lot of us, I think, even with just being in Israel this past December and trying to explain to our congregants what it's like in Israel regarding Reform Judaism, I think there's a lot of assumptions coming from the US that this is just how it looks everywhere. And it's so different in Israel, in which Reform Judaism is really the minority, and in which there is no separation of church and state, and which you do have a rabbanut, you have an Orthodox rabbinic authority over public life.
Right.
And what that means. So maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what are some of the things, the issues top of mind for you that you are working on that you'd like our congregants to know about.
Of course. Being a religious minority, I don't think this is an issue by itself. It becomes an issue when it's so important for ultra-Orthodox politicians to target us as a group. That's why, for example, we had a draft bill a few weeks ago about forbidding any religious service outside the Western Wall, which is not going with the chief Orthodox rabbinate decisions. So it's straight on us, for example, having unseparated service.
Right.
And the bill passed.
The first reading,
not the first, the pre-first reading passed, but still, it's because 2026 is the election year in Israel. It makes stuff more complicated, like overshadowed by some suspicions. For example, I don't know if we take it to the Iranian war, I could be happy for Ayatollah being dead. But when I'm thinking that maybe our prime minister has some side thoughts about that regarding the elections, it makes things complicated. So this is the same.
Let me just, if I could give a little context for our listeners here who might not understand everything that you're talking about here. So the Kotel, the Western Wall, in the past 40 years or so, has become under the authority of the Rabbanut and is treated like an Orthodox synagogue with a men's section, a women's section. And then there was a compromise made more recently to create on the southern side of the wall an egalitarian section where there a girl can become bat mitzvah, can read from the Torah, something that is not allowed in the main plaza. And in fact, that they could actually be arrested for doing so in the main plaza.
So it's also important to say that even for example, the liberal Orthodox tradition of having bat mitzvah in a women minyan is not allowed at the women's section. So it's not just the Orthodox tradition; it's this strict Orthodox tradition.
And so there was a law that has been a bill that has been submitted that went through its 3 readings in order to before the final vote. Correct?
It was government decision. It wasn't a bill. It was a government decision that put the agreement to open an egalitarian plaza, which would be equal to the Orthodox part. But at the end, because the ultra-Orthodox media found out about that, and they really they killed figuratively the ultra-Orthodox leaders, and they resigned, they took their signatures back from the agreement.
Right. I think within the reading that there's even a possible penalty of up to 7 years. Let's say for a woman, that's what's now the egalitarian section. If this bill passed, that egalitarian section would go away, and that if a woman was to put a talit on and read from the Torah.
So the new bill, the new draft is about forbidding everything and giving the Western Wall Authority a power to rule over all the Western Wall, which is very tricky. Also, it's important to say that this bill, I believe, it's coming from one member of Knesset who is also he doesn't have any other members of Knesset in his party.
Which party is it?
It's Noam party.
Yes,
which comes from a very far right Orthodox groups, not ultra-Orthodox, but they are some extent of national religious groups, and they're very close in their religious views to the ultra-Orthodox, but they're also very nationalistic groups. And they believe that the state should pursue and empower the ultra-Orthodox views on the citizens. So they had a few years ago when they ran and they didn't pass, they had one of their slogans was, when the grandfather is reform, the son is assimilant, and the grandson is goy, is Gentile. And it was, nobody bought this. He entered the Knesset only because he was the part of the joint list of Smotrich and Ben Gvir. And this bill is some of pre-election strategy on one hand, but on the other hand, the main party, the Likud party, they said that they are giving a free hand to the coalition members to vote for or against this bill, and it still passed.
Wow. So let me give a little bit more context again for our listeners here. The current government coalition, the coalition that Netanyahu put together, is heavily reliant upon the ultra-Orthodox, and we can split those into, I think, 2 different camps. The ultra-Orthodox, like whether they're the more Haredi set, which would be either the Ashkenazi ones of like United Torah Judaism, or the Sephardi, let's say, of Shas, versus the religious Zionist group, which is the Ben Gvir, Smotrich, and a lot of the settler groups, which actually for the past year or two have been very much at odds with one another over the draft conscription bill, and that is whether or not Orthodox should continue to be exempt from serving in the military. You have the Haredi sects who are very much in favor of that bill. Meanwhile, you have the religious Zionists who serve in the military very much against. And so you had this fighting between the two. They seem to have, in preparation for elections, found an issue that they can come together again and maybe motivate their voters on both sides to hopefully have the same number of seats going
Right.
forward.
Right.
Do you see this as being heavily motivated by the current candidate? I think the elections at the very latest could be October 26th, the
Yes.
date, unless Netanyahu decides, let's say the war in Iran goes very well, ends well, he could then, dissolve the current government, call for snap elections, and take advantage of his popularity.
Yes, but still, according to the law, you need 3 months at least. So
Right.
if he wants to have it in June, he need to
Do it now.
announce it now. July and August are not an option. September you have
Hagim,
you have holidays, and then you have October.
Pretty much it'll be October.
And now it doesn't seem by any poll that he earned something. Netanyahu earned something on that war politically. So
even though the war lost, I think something like 93% of the Israeli public is in favor of the war.
Yes, but as I said, like I could see this war as a success, although it's an election year.
Yes, very good. So that's one issue you're talking about is like representing the reform movement in issues like at the Kotel. Could you tell us a little bit, again, I think many of our congregants might not be aware, the degree that's different in Israel regarding who pays for synagogues, who pays for rabbis, who gets, what does the government do versus done privately. So you tell us a little bit about that, and the synagogue where you serve, I say, is that supported by the government? Your salary, is it supported by the government the way that a Haredi rabbis would be? How does that work, and what are you working on with that?
So in Israel, there's a system which supports financially the official rabbis, who are always the Orthodox rabbis.
Ultra-Orthodox even.
Not necessarily ultra-Orthodox rabbis, but they have to be licensed. Their smicha has to come from the chief rabbinate. Okay? So they have to be titled rabbis by the chief rabbinate.
Could you come from, let's say, to Yeshiva University, a standard, like a flag bearer, modern Orthodox, and go to Israel?
Even like by the plain letter of the law, I can go to an Orthodox yeshiva to study, to have a recommendation letter signed, to have my 6 to 9 to 11 exams, to be recognized as a rabbi for a city or for a village or for a kibbutz or for a regional council, and to pursue the job and to get it and to get very nice salary. But it's not just about that. It's about the title, about the rabbinical job. Some Reform Jewish legal struggles were about saying, for example, the biggest victory was almost 15 years ago at Kibbutz Gezer outside of Jerusalem, where the movement pursued the idea of local reform rabbis served most of the kibbutz people. And the Supreme Court said, okay, although Rabbi Miri Gold, she wasn't licensed by the chief rabbinate, it's impossible to have smicha for women from the chief rabbinate until almost now. Now we have some decisions which were not implicated for now. But she really serves the kibbutz. She has to get the finance from the government. So that was the decision. And then
that was a huge breakthrough.
Yes. And then the compromise was made when the regional councils, which had enough signatures from local residents to have also a reform or conservative rabbi paid by the government, the government has to pay by this rule of the Supreme Court. So now I believe we have about 12 to 15 reform and conservative rabbis serving at different regional councils.
Amazing.
In Gezer, in Mateh Asher at the north, at Shar HaNegev at the south. That's why, for example, the rabbi of Shar HaNegev, where most of the attacks of October 7th were made, she performed lots of funerals after that because the people were connected to her. But in many other regions, even on the Golan Heights, we have a regional, one of the Golan Heights regional councils, we have a reform rabbi who serves there. Also, there were different legal struggles to have government to pay for reform educational services. That we have 4 reform schools in Israel's school system, and they are financed by the government. And we have also Garinei Mesima, the groups for strategically important places in Israel, which the program that what was designed for modern Orthodox groups, but the Reform movement was successful into going into it and to get some funds from that. So, for example, Jaffa, where my congregation is situated, is the place that is considered a socioeconomically lower place. That's why there's a possibility that we had few years when we got some funds for my congregations for my congregation for that, and also specifically Tel Aviv being a very friendly municipality for liberal Judaism, we have some funds from them because it's Tel Aviv. So in Tel Aviv, we have the privilege not being afraid who wins the mayor elections because anybody will support us somehow.
If you're in Beit Shemesh, for example, a very or that would not be the case.
What an amazing example you brought.
Well, it's also, I'm sorry, sadly in the news
Beit Shemesh, because recently we had stuff there. Beit Shemesh, Bnei Brak, even Cholon. In Cholon, the authorities were the previous mayor was replaced last elections, and then it heavily impacted the local Reform community. In Tel Aviv, that's different. I can also say on the personal level that, for example, now I can tell it because our congregant, she went through Army Orthodox conversion process. She decided, we were supportive. She now finished and she got her certificate, so I can tell this story without names. But when she was looking for a sponsoring family, I had an opportunity to have a call to a deputy mayor who's Orthodox in Tel Aviv, who lives in the neighborhood where she lives, and he knew who I am. And I asked him to help, and he gave me a phone number of a family who was her hosting family, knowing somehow she's a member of the Reform community and still supporting her. So in Tel Aviv, we have some different level of conversation, but this is not the rule. This is
amazing. So I want to change gears, and I know that we don't have that much time left, but I want to ask you, you participated in the Hanasi Fellowship, which is a fellowship that brings Israeli rabbis or students to come to the U.S. and to learn about congregational life. It's such an interesting idea because it's a flip on the usual model. For decades, it seems that the message to American Jews was, come to Israel and we will make you more Jewish. We will give you more Jewish identity, like the birthright trip. We will, you might do nothing Jewish, but if you come to Israel, we will be the source of your Jewish identity. And here it was a model in which Israelis were coming to the US to actually learn something about synagogue life. And that's it's a lovely reciprocal relationship. So I'd love to ask you, put you on the spot here a bit. What are some things you saw and learned in participating in American synagogues that were sort of aha moments or takeaways or something that you've tried to bring to your community now in Jaffa?
Some of my teachers in HUC, they don't like when I say it, but I believe that the Hanasi Fellowship was one of the most teaching experiences that I had, and I learned even more that I had in the class because North America is the place where we can see Reform Jewish communities living in a natural habit, like not struggling for their
natural habitat. I like that.
And maybe the best example I can have, because my second visit was in this season, and that was Shabbat of Vayakhel Pekudei, which is going to be right now.
Yeah.
And there was a bat mitzvah that you officiated when the light went down because of the snowstorm.
It was a huge storm and the power went out everywhere.
2018. And the bat mitzvah, she was reading the verse, Lo tevaru esh bechol moshvotechem be'Shabbat. You should not kindle light in all your places on the Sabbath. Yeah. And the light went off. And then I had an opportunity to see you as a rabbi managing the sanctuary full of kids whose parents brought them in and went away for some other stuff, to deal with how we're going to manage that. And it was a very, very teaching experience on that. But not just that, all the opportunities I asked when I was asked what which synagogue I would prefer to go. I said I would like to go to the place where I can shadow not just the rabbi, but also not just the clergy, but also the staff. Because in Israel, we don't have the privilege
You
to
do
have
it
a
all.
big staff. We do that all
You put out the
by
chairs,
ourselves.
you turn on the lights.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I build the budget, and I'm looking for ways to fill this
Yes.
budget, because I don't have an executive and this and that. So here really all the opportunities to go to the financial committee and to hear how it works and how is this built, and to see how John Kelly
Yes.
is working. So it was quite an experience, and looking into religious school and this and that. That was very important, because it was very helpful into understanding this paradigm, but that I I do believe that visiting Israel helps American Jews to become more Jewish, but I also really believe that visiting American Jewish communities helps Israeli Jews to become more Jewish.
I appreciate that. I remember years ago when I was working at Jewish summer camp, we had members of the Mishlachat come out, the Israeli post-army, usually teens, or no, the pre-army teens coming out to work at the camps. And we put into their schedule a day of visiting Jewish day schools and synagogues to learn about what diaspora Jewish life is actually like. And they were shocked to see what that realized that they could practice Judaism in a non-Orthodox way. For many of them, there's either secular or there's religious, meaning Orthodox. I know this is what you're working on so hard in Israel, and it was an eye-opening moment for them to see that there were more pluralistic ways to practice Judaism. On the flip side, very often American Jews go to Israel and are saddened to find that they can't be their Jewish authentic selves in Israel the way that they can outside of Israel. And in Israel, of all places, I should be able to be the most free as a Jew, and I'm not. I think that's so much of this push and pull of what we're trying to learn from each other that way, and so much of the work you're doing. So how do you are basically, you're trying to teach non-Orthodox Jews that they can still be religious without being Orthodox. How do you do that?
That's actually something that gave me a funny and sad perspective, both. For the last 6 years, I'm trying to work on my doctoral thesis, and I'm writing about Rabbi David Neumark, who was a professor for Jewish philosophy in HUC in Cincinnati a century ago.
Wow.
And he was different from other rabbis than in North America, because he was a Zionist. And he wrote an article at 1917 in Hebrew, published an article that there's not so much difference between Reform Jews in America and secular Zionists in the land of Israel, Palestine. And he described it in a very correct way, which sounds really correct today too. And he got a fierce response from Echad Ha'am and other Jewish secular thinkers, Zionist thinkers. They said, no, that's different. It's not and he answered them. There was a blessed time when big minds corresponding through articles and the written letters. He said, no, that the same way of life. You're choosing what you observe and what you not, and you're very careful with your feeling of belonging to Jewish tradition, and we're the same. We are doing the same. But that gave me that perspective that this is a very long run. This is a marathon, and I'm just trying to tread softly, because in Israel the feeling is that this is something we are building together. And sometimes, as a Reform rabbi, I feel myself as a pioneer who opens opportunities also for my conservative and Orthodox colleagues and counterparts. And I really believe that Orthodox communities ordaining women today in Israel were not possible without Rabbi Nami Kalman, our beloved teacher, being ordained back 35 years ago. And so sometimes it's about that, and sometimes it's about being frustrated for not being credited enough for being the pioneers. And sometimes it's for giving people opportunities to feel part of Jewish tradition when they found cold shoulder in other communities. So this is what we do, and this is what we are.
I'm going to get you out of here. One last question. You're here in New York now. You're going to San Francisco for the CCR conference. What you're here with your son as well. What is something you're looking forward to either seeing, experiencing, or eating while you're here?
Oh, actually, it's for my son, it's his first American experience
ever.
So we're looking for different stuff. Yesterday we served the city.
Yeah.
And it was his first Times Square
Oh my goodness.
experience.
Yeah.
And he loves it. I love that. And we'll do our best on trying. I told him that when we are in California, we're going to be in LA for the next weekend. He has to try Mexican.
The best Mexican food there. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I know that. So I'm doing this for him too, because I really believe it was important for me to give my kids also the opportunity to experience the American Jewish life when they're kids, because this is really, it's very tempting in Israel to believe we are, some say villa in the jungle, right? To understand that Jewish world is way more expanded than we see it in Israel.
And we're all big one family. So thank you. It's lovely to have you part of our extended Bethel family as well. And just so glad to have you on the podcast. So thank you.
It's great being here as usual.
Okay. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on In Such a Time. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. To learn more about Rabbis Jonathan Jaffe and Leora Landi, or to connect with Temple Bethel of Northern Westchester, visit bethelnw.org, or follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Temple Bethel NW. Thanks for listening.